So we've had a weekend to play a lot of Marvel Rivals, enjoy the variety of maps, test out your favourite heroes, be spat off the map by Jeff the Landshark, and have begged for your life after hearing Maximum Pulse! Today, I'm here to give some impressions on Marvel Rivals, the stuff that I'm loving about it, what I'm liking about it, and then my criticisms, because there is stuff here that does need some work. But, as always, very quickly, before I get into that, if comic book games are your shit, consider subscribing. News, reviews, guides, streams, the full shebang. I got it here on the channel, so I'd love you to stick around. Right, let's give you my impressions on Marvel Rivals. So yeah, like I say, after around 15 hours, plus the probably 15 to 20 that I spent in the betas, there's really a lot I like here. I naturally gravitate more towards PvE style games, but this one is really clicking with me. I think the good aspect is that the problems that I do have the game, they are not core fundamental problems. They're more systematic problems that can be changed down the line, and I think for the health of the overall long-term picture of the game, they will need to change. I think at its most basic, simplest terms, Marvel Rivals is a great video game, fantastic Marvel. You know, we've had a good amount of Marvel video games ever since the birth of the label Marvel Games, and Marvel Rivals is right up there in terms of its overall Marvel presentation and aesthetic. It is so comic book coded in all of the best ways. There's just so much love for the Marvel IP there, and you really feel it when you're playing the game. It's spoken about all the time about how crowded the multiplayer shooter market is, but when you bring that juggernaut of the IP in Marvel, and then you follow it up with this art direction, authenticness, and the fresh character designs, you're already off to a pretty good start. I think it's such a great choice though, that they didn't go for this ultra realistic graphical look that something like Marvel's Avengers went for, that they went to this more artistic comic book design for it. For many shooters out there, you wouldn't really class the IP as one of the main strengths of the game, you know? Like, Call of Duty is Call of Duty for its gameplay, and more particular, its gunplay. Here, one of Marvel Rivals' greatest strengths is that it's so authentically Marvel. Whether that's being on Asgard and hearing Thor and Loki bounce lines off each other, the really vibrant character designs, the greater Marvel world building of its maps, or the skill sets that are adopted by each of its characters. But in the same way that Marvel Rivals leans so heavily into the Marvel IP in its aesthetic, I wish it did just as much so in what it offers in the game. The two main modes in quick play of push the payload and capturing the points, I mean, they're fine, they're well designed maps, but I just feel like for a game of superheroes and supervillains, there's so much more room for experimentation here than what is already tried and true. Like really at launch, I could have done with another one or two offerings here in terms of its game modes, especially when we've had hero shooters in the past that have these game modes and they're not really doing anything different here. At the end of the day, slapping an incredible Marvel aesthetic over a gameplay formula that you already know is working is a safe bet as any video game can have really, but yeah, I would really have liked to have seen at least one more offering that leans into that Marvel IP more. You know, I'm not talking in terms of making it like a MOBA or having a complete PvE horde mode or anything like that, but even something like a PvPvE mode, you know what, on the symbiote homeworld at the end of the day, we're off to the Hydra base, like surely we could have had something here akin to Destiny's Gambit, where we're fighting symbiotes at the same time and we've got to rack up a certain amount of symbiote kills and two players from the enemy team can invade and try and disrupt that, or something like that. Something that really leans into the Marvel IP in its modes than just the basic copy and paste, push the payload and control the zone. Because I do feel that after a couple of hours of play, and especially with the way the battle pass is working, more on that in a minute, but I do feel that after a couple of hours it becomes very, very samey. And because these are modes that people have been playing for a good couple of years now, it does start to get into that kind of repetitive nature, and I think in the long term, they should try and experiment more with its modes that it's offering. And look, it's understandable that they have played it safe, but down the road, I just think that more experimental offerings that feel more Marvel related would do wonders for helping with this game's replayability and making it feel more distinct in its moment-to-moment offerings. I really do think that IP strength helps carry its gameplay. The gameplay, don't get me wrong, it's good, it's competent, it's well designed, it's true to the nature of its characters, but I don't think anyone is going around like this is the best feeling shooter ever, man. And that's okay, because it's still good. You know, playing as a duelist, the gunplay feels distinct in doing big crit shots with Black Widow versus one constant damage throughput as Wanda. And I think there's also a good variety amongst each of the duelists, the vanguards and the specialists. One aspect of this that I really do love is the team up abilities and the team synergies, like being able to do fastball with Hulk and Wolverine, Rocket laying down unlimited ammo for Punisher and Bucky. I just love how these little things that are just homages to comic book moments or MCU moments or whatever it may be, but put into this game, yes, they're nice homages, but also when utilised correctly, these team abilities, they can turn the tide of a match, and I think that it adds an extra layer in terms of this game's complexity and the depthness of its systems that I'm a big fan of, and I'm really glad that we're going to see more team abilities added down the line. Like, of course, it's a bit gimmicky and goofy seeing Jeff the Landshark being able to ride on Groot, but the fact that they have the ability to change the tide of a match is massive. Like Magneto solo, look, he's a decent character, but when you pair him with Wanda, his damage output is so much vastly superior that he almost feels useless without her. One aspect, however, where the game does need work is obviously team composition. Now, this is a hot topic. Unlike Overwatch, there is no role queuing at launch. Now, I've gone kind of back and forth on it over the weekend with friends that I've been playing with or others that I've been speaking to have been playing the game as to what should they do here with obviously role queuing, with strategists, duelists and vanguards and how team composition looks. And this is where I've landed, is that I personally think for the long-term health of the game, if nothing is done to this at all, I think it will be damaging to the long-term health of the game, personally. And a lot of this depends really on your matchmaking look in terms of how your team composition is. But for me, as an example, the other day, I went into a game, match to match to match, so 3 games in a row. I was the only healer on my team with no tank and 5 duelists. And it just wasn't fun. Like, it meant after the 3 games, I was like, nah, I'm done. And there's a big problem here because there's games where I'd like to be a duelist and I just never get the chance to be because everyone is going for the duelist straight away. Now, I'm going to disagree with Thanos in that not everything should be perfectly balanced, and I do not think that role queuing is the answer here. I don't. I think the best case scenario here is just ensuring that one of each type of class is in each team. So there's always on one team, one strategist, one duelist, and one vanguard. I don't think this game should go ultra competitive and sweaty in the same way that Overwatch does. This game, at the heart of its IP, is about fun and goofiness. For example, like yesterday I was playing and we were perfectly balanced. We were 2-2-2 and we were struggling. And then at the end of the game, for one final push at the payload, what we did is we went for 4 duelists, a tank and a healer. And because of that raw damage output and that switch up, and maybe the team that we were facing weren't expecting it, we actually turned the tide of the game. And I think that kind of experimentation is warranted and it's fun and it should stay there. The responsibility is also just as much on the player to learn to play as other roles than just the duelist and where their favourite character is. But also, I do think we need some small restriction that I think the best system here is just having one of each class on a team guaranteed. And then I guess that if you don't want to touch quick play, that's fair enough, then leave it to competitive where you add role queuing or something like that. But I do think that experimentation is at the heart of this game, and having team compositions be able to change is a good thing. But like I say, it's a really tricky situation to get right. But I do think that that compromise of 1-1-1 would definitely help. There's also another aspect of this in that I can't help but notice, but like 80% of the most popular characters in this game are duelists, and that's where a problem lies. Now, what's done is done. They shouldn't rework them, but I think to increase people's desire to play as a vanguard or a specialist, we need more Marvel big hitters in this role. Make Gwen a healer, Thanos a vanguard, Silver Surfer a strategist. These roles will be more appealing if they had more of people's favourite characters in these roles. Now, Jeff the Landshark has become iconic because how can you not love Jeff, even though he's a toxic player right now, let me tell you. But I do think that most of the popular characters are in that duelist slot, other than like Thor and Venom being vanguards as their people's favourite characters. But I definitely feel that some of those duelists that we have in the game right now, they could have been vanguards or strategists too, and it would have helped move the needle in terms of wanting to play as the other classes a bit more. This is more of a suggestion and not necessarily a critique of the game, more just how people's favourite characters work out. And I think also by going for this kind of approach, it's a less invasive method by simply just increasing people's desire to play in characters of the Vanguard and Strategist than, forcing them down a role queuing system. Because really, right now, the only reason you would play in other things outside of your favourite hero is for those daily challenges. Speaking of those daily challenges then, oh boy, I mean, this needs some work. This needs some big work. And look, I appreciate Marvel Rivals in that the fact that they're doing no FOMO, never expiring battle passes that you can work on in future seasons. And I think the rewards that are actually in the current battle pass for the value that you're getting out of how much you put into it is very good. However, this current battle pass model is rough. 4 daily challenges netting 30 chrono currency each, so you're getting 120 a day, and then every 2 days you're getting 3 missions that each net 80. Obviously, this is aside from an accumulation of achievement points or completing seasonal event missions that will net you some additional battle pass currency, but they're not the main track of doing it. And the fact that there is no ongoing method to level up your battle pass is flat out awful. And like I say, doing all of your dailies isn't even enough to get one reward from the battle pass, and the fact that there is no repeatable daily means that you are being time gated into how fast you can unlock the battle pass right now, and that is just flat out bad. Really bad, and it's rubbing me up the wrong way a lot. I've seen a few comparisons to it being like the start of the battle passes of Halo Infinite, and yeah, it's a great comparison. To not have the ability to level up your battle pass simply through playing the game is a major misstep. There needs to be a major revamp to how this battle pass progression is done. And to be honest with you, it's part of a larger, wider, ongoing trend that I am really not a fan of right now, especially in PvP games. Games like Call of Duty, Apex Legends, EA Sports FC, all of these games, their battle passes, their season passes, are all designed so that when you are invested in one of those, they become the only game that you can play in that season if you want to unlock all of the stuff that's in the battle pass, because they're so grindy, they're so lengthy, and they're so unappreciative of a player's time. Ever since I played Diablo 4 and did one of their battle passes, every other battle pass has felt so selfish of a player's time. Diablo 4's battle pass can be completed in 12 to 14 hours in the experience that I've had. These games, they want you logging in every single day to make sure that you complete a battle pass. If your game is good enough, you do not need to hog a player's time to spend a full season finishing them. Especially in Marvel Rivals' case, to actively time gate battle pass progression is just, it's a major turn off. I play my games and then after that feel discouraged because unless I'm ticking off the achievements, there's no carrot to chase. And yeah, I do play games just for fun, and I've had so much fun playing over the weekend, but I just do not like this current interpretation of the battle pass. And like even with the achievements, there is that carrot on the stick to go and chase and do all of those and just carry on playing the matches, but just a simple change, something as simple as you get 10 chrono currency for finishing a match and you get an additional 5 for winning it, for example, or 5 for being the most valuable player. And those small little things, Marvel Rivals is good enough on its own to warrant me to just keep playing without time gating or anything like that. Like, I just do not understand. Well, I do understand. They want you just playing their games forever so that you're always looking at the store. But I just feel like with these battle pass restrictions, it's just, it's so anti-player, anti-consumer. And when you can tell me all you want about how like your battle passes never expire, that means nothing to me if it takes me 2 months to complete a battle pass and I have to log in daily and weekly to make sure I get it done. But I don't want this to get too negative because, as I said at the start, all the issues that I have here, they're all systematic and they can easily be fixed. Like I say, giving +5 for completing a match and +5 for winning and +5 for most valuable player, it's easy. I haven't done the maths in terms of what's actually reasonable, but for a move where they've gone pro-consumer in never expiring battle passes, this current design and current iteration feels anti-player. And the challenges themselves, I think, are actually fine. There are a few that are a little bit too specific, but That's more the seasonal event missions, like Storm needing to use her specific Thor team ability, which is very weak and very situational, so that challenge can become a bit tougher. And plus you have to have a Thor in your team, which isn't always a guarantee, unless you've got some friends, and no one ever seems to listen to the requests in the game, so yeah, that can be a bit of an issue. But as for the dailies and the main missions, they're not a major issue here. I think they're more than fine. As for the store, I mean, I'm pretty unmoved by it. As far as free-to-play goes, it's actually one of the better offerings that I've seen in terms of the ability to actually earn some units to buy some cosmetics, but I mean, yeah, it's free-to-play at this point. It's exactly what I expect. And I've stated it and I stick by it, and I really do feel like we are devaluing our media a little bit, but also I'm just personally a little bit tired of the free-to-play model. I hope that in future we can find some kind of compromise, a bit like a Helldivers 2 model, where we have this lower entry price to buy in at around 40 quid, and then skins are actually reasonably priced. Not this 16 to 20 quid per skin, where you buy 3 skins and all of a sudden you basically just bought yourself a game, especially where we've got a roster of 33 characters. I mean, the microtransactions here, it can get absolutely insane. And again, for how many suits this game is going to have, it would have been nice to just have, considering they have character proficiency, to just have one alternate suit that could be unlocked for every single character. Even if it was just a simple recolor, it's just more player goodwill. And look, we've got a fantastic Marvel game here, but it just really would help gather more momentum and more good player sentiment when you have those initial unlocks, when it's just a simple recolor and reskin of what if you've already got in the game. It just helps, you know? But I think it's more a conversation for another day. But the trade-off of free-to-play has become the fact that there is a lack of progression in so many multiplayer games, in that progression now is really just tied to a battle pass. Again, I will say, the achievements here, it's good, and it really is the game's main progression outside of something like the ranked or competitive modes. It encourages you to play all of the characters, it fleshes out the Marvel lore like Star-Lord assisting Guardians, or Wanda and Magneto, or Cap and Hulk, or whatever it might be. Just little touches with those sharp, punny achievement names, and little things like that that I appreciate. It seems like they'll be adding more as time goes on, and I think it helps add some healthy progression, and like I say, that carrot on the stick to chase, outside of a badly designed battle pass right now. I also appreciate Marvel Rivals' attempt to really flesh out its own iteration of the Marvel Universe. Seasonal events and battle passes containing story cards, which can be as simple as Spider-Man giving a bit of a background as to what his universe was like and how he got to where he is now, and giving an update in terms of what's happening in Marvel Rivals with Doom, but also the way that those get presented as panels in a comic book is just a neat touch. And again, as far as the comic book feel of this game goes, it reminds me a lot of Batman Arkham Asylum with the way that game had its character bios and the tapes and just that overall design. Just something that, as a huge comic book fan, I'm really thankful for. Again, like I said at the top, the gripes that I have with this game are very systematic, and the core of it I think is very, very good. And as a result, I am extremely optimistic about this game's future. I mean, the fact that we have 33 playable heroes at launch, and in the future we're going to get new heroes, and every single one of those heroes are going to be coming to the game for free. Seasons are going to introduce heroes, being that we could get more than one at once. Maps, story content, I assume, with the way these cards work, and maybe cutscenes and stuff. And they have spoken a little bit about more game modes coming in the future, which I am optimistic about. I've always said that when you come out of an MCU movie or watch a show, often you just want something to go home and replicate that experience. And really, there hasn't ever been anything like that. Avengers was often too far behind and it couldn't synergize with the big main events. And the last thing to really do that was Marvel Heroes. So you can kind of picture it that when Fantastic Four in the MCU rolls around next summer, how this game will synergize with maybe a Baxter building map and adds Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm, or Daredevil show premieres in March and we get the Man Without Fear as a playable character. Even right down to Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra by Skydance Studios that's due to come out next year. That game drops and you get their skins in Marvel Rivals as purchasable things. The synergy here, the opportunities here is limitless. It's crazy what this game has the potential to do. And it's experienced a absolutely colossal launch. I mean, Marvel Rivals put out that it's had 10 million players already, which is massive. And that's why people go free to play, to get as many people through the door as possible. So you can't really fault them for that. And I'm sure that's been replicated as well in in-game purchases of people's favorite MCU suits. Look, a few tweaks to reduce the friction with player's progression, and maybe a longer term look at how matchmaking and player selection is done, and I think this game has extremely long legs. Marvel Rivals at launch is a marvellous multiplayer video game. What, you don't like my pun? Listen, I can do this all day. Anyway, I want to know, what are you thinking about Marvel Rivals so far? Let's do it this way. Give me one thing you're loving about it, one thing you like about it, and one thing that you would improve on going forward. Or just go off and let me know everything that you want to say about the game. Either way, just keep it civil, yeah. I'd love to hear from you in the comments, but let's just be nice down there. Anyway, if you enjoyed hearing my thoughts, I would enjoy you leaving a like in the fight against the algorithm gods. It always helps me out. And like I said at the top of the video, if comic book games are your thing, news, reviews, guides, streams, the full shebang, consider subscribing. I'd love for you to stick around. Otherwise, all my socials will be linked in the description down below. So if you have anything else for me, you can get at me down there. Regardless, I hope you have a terrific day. Play games, get gains, and I'll catch you in the next one.